Hi, this is Angela from Dance with Angela, and today I'm going to share some of the amazing miracles from the Sufi movement that I experienced with Adnan Sarhan. I can do a little bit of a demonstration of some of the movement as well, and I wanted to share a little bit about the rapid technique of Adnan. Adnan's no longer with us in this realm, but he's left a lot of memories and a lot of peace with people. And in these times, we can draw on the peace that was given by Sufi masters from the past as an ongoing tradition. And it's a tradition that grows with us as a human species. So the beginning of the tradition of the Sufis started way back thousands of years ago, where people used to connect to nature, connect to the feeling of connecting to their spirit through movement, through their voice, through chanting, and through prayer. So they might chant some parts of the Quran, they might have poets. There's a whole history of Sufi poets, and also in the Far East or further east, there are the Bhakti poets as well. So chanting and poetry, and a lot of the beginning of what we know through the cipher of hip hop started through these oral traditions where we used to say words over and over. So one of the parts of the rapid technique of Adnan was to do a lot of movements that were repetitive over and over. So I'm sitting here on the floor, and I just wanted to share a little taste of some of the movements that we're going to be doing in Dance for Joy, and as a way to introduce you to some of the strategies of how to bring yourself back to the moment, because our lives can become very busy, very noisy, and very distracted. So some of the simple movements, you might know some Sufi movements where you have your hands on your thighs and you're just doing a circular movement. So some of you might know that movement. And you're just focusing on your inhale and your exhale with the movement. So you're synchronizing the movement with your breath. So that's a very famous Sufi movement if you don't know it. And it's a very simple one. You can do it seated on a chair, you can do it on the ground, and you can just close your eyes and follow that movement, circular movement, with your inhale and your exhale. And with Adnan, we used to do following the movement with our eyes open. So we'd have that movement watching Adnan, and he would cue us with a simple breathing rhythm. So we'd be breathing in with one direction of the movement and exhaling with the other part of the movement. So breathing in as we maybe went forward, and then he'd say exhale as we were going backwards. So it was a really simple way to practice movement by following someone with some beautiful music. You might hear the music in the background as well. So it's just allowing yourself to follow any movement with a rhythmic breath. And the movement doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be exact. One of the things with the Sufi movement, it was before we had a lot of traditions of how to do things correct. And in ancient times when we studied movement, we would just copy. Just like when we're kids, we follow along and we clap, or we take a certain movement because we're following along with the movement. And so if you're following along, you can just try doing that circle the other way. So if you're seated on the chair, you can just have the hands relaxing on your knees, and you can just follow your breath in when you're coming to the front, and exhale when you're coming to the back. So it's a really simple technique, and it's throughout all of the rapid technique of Adnan. So you can keep following that movement and just feel that flow of your own in-breath and your own out-breath. And coming back. What I discovered with the movement is that, as Adnan says, there is a magic in the moment. I think one of his phrases is, the dance becomes the life of the moment. So if you're ever experiencing anxiety or a really sense of distraction, a sense of being overwhelmed, a sense of busyness, these simple strategies, they look really like, yeah, all right, how are they going to help me? What they do, especially in the Dance for Joy workshops, which I'll be sharing in Sydney, and I have a link in the description below, October 22nd, November 2nd and 9, what they do is they start to bring a peace into the body very quickly. In the Sufi camp with Adnan, we would see people doing these movements for a couple of hours in the morning, then at night we would dance. And after a few weeks, your rhythm of your whole body used to change. After a couple of months, we had people that would let go of all sorts of habits. They would lose weight, they would stop smoking, stop coffee, stop sugar. Also, people like myself, I had a lot of anxiety and destructive thoughts. And the addiction to those thoughts was the habit. So some people don't talk about anxiety in that format, but how does anxiety actually happen? It happens from having a thought habit, and then thought habit becomes normal for you, and it could be a destructive thought habit. And then it becomes a pathway in your brain. It also becomes a routine in how you use your body's relationship to the brain. So if the thought habit starts, the body can have certain hormones, certain neurochemistry going on, and the addiction starts to the thought habit. So the anxiety can become habitual through the neurochemistry of the whole body, not just the brain, the whole body. And so what happened for me in the Sufi movement was that when I discovered simple movements where I was synchronizing with my breath and allowing peace to be experienced in the moment, was I had a new way of being with the body, which had developed an addiction to these negative thoughts, destructive thoughts. And if you notice, thoughts are very circular as well. That's another way that they can start to seem more real or strong or stronger than your other ways of being. Because they're circular, they start to create a certain pattern in your life, and they become normalized when actually they're just thoughts going around and around. So the dance and the rhythm of the Sufi movement, what it starts to do is create a different path. It could be a path in your body's neurochemistry. It could be just a feeling in the body. It could be a shape in the body. And sometimes with that circular movement, we would explore shape. Because I'm a kinesthetic, shapes are really cool for me. So shapes can be an enormous way to start playing with our senses in the body. So here I'm going to move on to the senses of the body and how they interrelate with, for example, combating anxiety, and I would even say building a stronger sense of the body as opposed to the control of thoughts over the body. Because our bodies are a temporary vessel. The thoughts, when we have anxiety or destructive thoughts, they tend to make out that they're perfect, and they're not. They're just repetitive and cyclical. Thoughts go around, they go, and they come back. The body, however, is a vessel where we can begin to experience what is this body in the moment. And this is where Sufi movement was a place for me to begin to explore this. In Dance for Joy, we're going to look at other ways of exploring this through body-mind centering exercises, through feeling through the body's energy, like in Qigong. And in world dance, how those dance forms also bring us into feeling the beauty of this body, the shape of the body. So I'm just going to explore the shape, and one of the shapes we used in our Sufi movement was this shape made from the arms in that reach from our heart. So if you're exploring the space and that shape right now, you can just feel your arms reaching out from your chest level, from that heart level here. And you can just imagine that there is actually a space that's contained in the hands. This was from the movements with Adnan, what I started to discover that sort of astounded me, because I didn't actually know that there was anything between my hands before I met Adnan. I'd done some belly dance and other dance forms, but I didn't actually know that there was something actually there in the middle of that space. I just sort of thought it was like, put your hands here. But in the Sufi movement, what we started to feel was something much more profound. And it's basically the more you do the movement, the more you feel the moment. You feel the expansion of that moment into the space. So you can just feel the hands here now, just making a beautiful shape of that extension of your space between your hands. And as you're feeling the space between your hands, you can just find your own movement, or you can follow along with my movement. And we used to just paint the space. Adnan might lift his hands into a different shape. But all the time, you're just feeling that space between the hands and the quality of the air in that moment, or the quality of the feeling of your hands touching the space. And really, there's no limit to how you could explore that feeling of the hands reaching from the heart and creating that space between the hands and the shape of your arms into the space. Because we call this the heart space when I dance. And it's a cup or a chalice which you can open up to the heavens, or you can bring it more at your heart level, and you can invite anything into that heart space. Firstly, you may need to just experience the heart space, feel it filling up. For me, when I had the anxious thoughts, the destructive thoughts, coming into that heart space, my thoughts started to criticize that space. Like, what is that? Is it okay? Am I doing it right? That's the thoughts that you have when you have constant negative thoughts or anxious thoughts. They're always trying to make out that there's something missing. But actually, when we feel into the space between the hands, there's no right or wrong possible. It's literally just the feeling part of our nervous system that's allowing us to sense what could be in that space. And we can give an image to it, or we could give a quality to it, we could give a softness to it, we could give a fullness to it. But always we can just allow whatever our consciousness in the moment needs to explore or experience. And that's the power of feeling the space between the hands. It actually is unlimited, and it's shaped by our thoughts, our consciousness. So for me, when I found Adnan and I saw my anxious thoughts starting to destroy that space between the hands and try to shape it into something that it's not, I saw how our thoughts actually can really start to shape anything in a negative way, unless I allow myself to feel more and more and more what is that enlivened space between the hands. What is the divine? What is spirit? I don't know, but I can feel my heart wanting to discover what spirit is. Adnan also has another phrase. He says the dance is the yearning of the spirit to freedom. So in any moment when you start to play with movement, you're really just experiencing what you want to experience. Our mind might try to flavor it, and that's what might make you feel weird in your movement or uncomfortable or give you anxious thoughts. But every movement, every moment in the dance is where you begin to feel what you're yearning to explore. For me, that was definitely a yearning for spirit to come more into my life. Once I started the Sufi movement, it started a journey to discover where is spirit in my body? Where is it in my world? How is it in every moment? I've also been a very strong science fiction nerd from very early in life. So for me, time was always a possibility to be explored momentarily, and it might not necessarily be a linear experience. When we start to move as well, we can start to experience our imagination relating to the space, relating to the feeling nature of our bodies. And so in that feeling, there's this actual sense that time is always present, is always eternal. A lot of the Sufi poets talk about that feeling, that time is not in a moment, but in that moment you're connecting to something eternal. And that's our connection to our permanent nature, our spiritual self. That lives in this beautiful physical body, but it actually exists beyond that. So in the Sufi world, we look at that experience. How do we capture it through movement? How do we share it as a group? How do we dance in the space? And also, how do we make that a part of our lives every day? It's not just about coming to a once-off and then expecting it to move as a permanent way of being. In the Sufi traditions, they did it as a practice. So if you want to explore these practices, you can join us in the Dance for Joy workshops in Sydney. And I'll also be creating some online classes. So I'll keep you posted when I have those classes. They're already available if you want to book some private sessions. You can organise that by contacting me, Angela at Dance with Angela. And also I'll be creating some online classes where you can start to really practice some of these movements to become that moment and enjoy the experience of how that moment can expand into your everyday life with a regular Sufi practice, with a regular joyful practice, and bringing that moment into other movement forms that you do as well. So thank you so much for watching, and have a beautiful week.